My name is Emily Carter, and for most of my life, I thought I was living the perfect marriage. You know those couples people look at and say, they're made for each other? Yeah, that used to be us, Mark and Emily Carter, the golden couple. We met 12 years ago at a friend's engagement party. He was charming, confident, and had that kind of smile that made you forget what you were even saying. Within a year, we were married. We built a life together in a quiet suburban neighborhood just outside of Denver. We bought a house with white shutters, planted a rose garden, and even adopted a golden retriever named Buddy. On the outside, everything was perfect. But as I would later learn, perfection can be the most dangerous illusion. It started subtly. Mark had always been attentive, sending me texts during the day, asking how my work was going, surprising me with coffee when I worked late nights at the clinic. But over the past few months, something had changed. The text stopped. The smiles faded. The excuses began. He started coming home late, claiming he had emergency meetings or last-minute client dinners. At first, I believed him. After all, Mark worked in finance, and deadlines were often brutal. But then came the scent. One evening, when he finally walked in close to midnight, I caught a faint whiff of perfume. Not mine. Not anything I owned. It was sweet and musky, like something you'd wear on a date, not at work. Long day? I asked, trying to sound casual. He didn't meet my eyes. Yeah, the client wouldn't stop talking. I'm exhausted. He kissed my forehead, just lightly, and headed straight for the shower. Something inside me shifted. It was like a tiny crack had appeared in the glass of our marriage, and I couldn't stop staring at it. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing more cracks. He changed his phone password. He started shaving more often, wearing cologne he hadn't touched in years. And then there were the phone calls, always taken outside, always ending with, "I'll call you later." I wanted to trust him. God, I tried. But every time he smiled at me, it felt fake, like he was hiding behind that perfect husband mask. One Saturday morning, I decided to test him. I suggested we go out for brunch like we used to. Can't, he said quickly, without even looking up from his phone. I've got a client meeting. I crossed my arms. On a Saturday? He hesitated, just a flicker, but enough for me to notice. Yeah, new client. Big deal. You know how it is. He kissed me on the cheek, grabbed his car keys, and left. But this time, I didn't let him go alone. I waited 5 minutes, then got into my car and followed him. My heart was racing so fast I could barely breathe. Every streetlight felt like it was judging me, telling me I shouldn't be doing this. But I needed to know. Mark's car stopped downtown, not at an office building, but outside a coffee shop. From where I parked, I could see him through the window. He sat down at a corner table, and a woman joined him. She was younger than me. Long brown hair, red lipstick, tight dress. She laughed when he said something, touching his hand in that flirty, familiar way that made my stomach twist. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. It felt like my heart had fallen out of my chest and shattered on the pavement. He wasn't working. He wasn't meeting a client. He was meeting her. I took out my phone, snapped a photo through the windshield, and then sat there trembling. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just stared at the picture, the two of them smiling, leaning in close, and felt my whole world tilt sideways. When Mark came home that night, I didn't say a word. He smiled like nothing had happened, asked if I wanted to watch a movie, talked about how stressful work was. And I just nodded, pretending I didn't know that a piece of my heart had already been stolen by another woman. The next morning, I decided I needed proof, real proof. One blurry picture wasn't enough. If I was going to confront him, I needed to make sure there was no way he could lie his way out of it. So I started digging. First, I checked our credit card statements. Nothing unusual, until I noticed a few charges from restaurants and hotels I'd never heard of. One in particular caught my eye. The Willow Inn, a boutique hotel just outside the city. The charge was from 2 weeks ago, a night he told me he was on a business trip. That was it. My hands went cold. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the statement, my coffee untouched. All those late nights, the distant smiles, the mysterious perfume, they all made sense now. Still, I needed to see it for myself. So I made a plan. The following week, Mark told me he had another client dinner. My voice didn't even shake when I said, "Okay, honey. Don't be too late." As soon as he left, I grabbed my purse and followed him again. This time, he didn't go downtown. He drove to the outskirts, toward the same hotel from the credit card statement. I parked across the street and watched as he pulled into the lot. A few minutes later, she arrived, the same woman from the coffee shop. They greeted each other with a kiss. And not the polite kind. It was the kind of kiss that said, "We've been doing this for a long time." Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't look away. I recorded everything, from the moment they met to when they disappeared inside the hotel lobby. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. It was real. It was happening. My husband, the man I trusted with everything, was cheating on me. I sat there for almost an hour, staring at that hotel door, my heart breaking piece by piece. When he finally came out, it was dark. He walked her to her car, kissed her again, and drove off. By the time I got home, I wasn't crying anymore. I wasn't even angry. I was numb. Mark came in an hour later, smiling like nothing had happened. "Dinner ran long," he said, hanging up his jacket. "You still up?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, just watching TV." He sat beside me, reaching for my hand, and I looked into his eyes, those same blue eyes I used to trust more than anything, and realized he had no idea. He thought his secret was safe. He thought I was still the clueless, loving wife. But he was wrong. Because now I had proof. And I wasn't planning to stay silent for long. End of part 1. That night, as Mark slept beside me, I stared at his phone glowing on the nightstand, locked, but not for long. Because by morning I would know everything. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them, Mark and that woman, laughing, kissing together. The image burned behind my eyelids like a cruel movie I couldn't turn off. Mark lay beside me, his breathing steady, peaceful, as if he hadn't just shattered my world hours earlier. Around 2 a.m., I finally gave in to the temptation. I reached over, careful not to wake him, and picked up his phone from the nightstand. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might wake him up. Face ID, no luck. Password, it was new. I tried his birthday, our anniversary, even Buddy's name. Nothing. Frustrated, I almost gave up until I remembered something. A few days earlier, he'd been unlocking his phone while I stood behind him. I'd seen his thumb move toward the top right corner of the screen, then middle, then lower left. It wasn't much, but it was a pattern. I tried a few combinations until, finally, click, the screen unlocked. For a moment, I just stared at it, frozen. Then I opened his messages. Most chats were work-related, but then I saw one labeled with a heart emoji. Clara. My fingers trembled as I tapped it open. The first message I saw was from that evening. "Clara, I miss you already. You smell like my favorite sin. Mark, you're impossible. I'll see you again soon, baby." I felt my stomach twist. My vision blurred with tears, but I kept scrolling. There were weeks, months of messages. Photos of her. Voice notes. Plans for secret weekends. He'd told her things he hadn't said to me in years, calling her beautiful, my love, my reason to breathe. The worst part? He'd told her he was stuck in a loveless marriage, that he stayed only out of obligation. Those words hit me like a knife to the chest. After everything I'd given him, supporting his career, holding the house together, standing by him through layoffs and debt, he called me a burden. I wanted to scream, to wake him up and throw every lie in his face. But I didn't. Not yet. I needed to be smarter than that, because something in those messages caught my eye, a detail that made my blood run cold. "2 weeks from now, on a Friday," he'd written to her. "Can't wait for our trip. Just you, me, and no distractions. Finally, some freedom." A trip? He hadn't mentioned anything about a trip to me. I scrolled up. She'd send a picture of flight tickets to San Francisco. 2 seats. Same date. I recognized the airline. It was one Mark used for business trips. So that was it. He was planning to take her to San Francisco while lying to my face again. I took screenshots of everything and sent them to my email, hidden under a folder he'd never think to open. When I put his phone back, I looked at him one last time. He was sleeping like a baby, and all I could think was, how could someone look so innocent while living such a dirty lie? The next morning, I acted like nothing was wrong. I made breakfast, kissed him goodbye, told him to have a great day at work. Inside, though, I was burning. Every "I love you" he threw over his shoulder on the way out felt like a dagger. When he left, I called my best friend Hannah. We'd known each other since college. She was the kind of person who could read my silence better than words. The second she heard my voice, she knew something was off. "Emily? What's wrong?" I hesitated, then broke down. Between sobs, I told her everything. The lies, the hotel, the woman, the messages. "Oh my God," she whispered. "That bastard." I knew something felt off about him lately. Her anger gave me strength, but she also said something that stuck with me. "Don't confront him yet. Make him think he's still winning. People like Mark slip up when they think they're safe." She was right. So I decided to wait and watch. For the next week, I played my part perfectly. I smiled, cooked dinner, kissed him goodnight. Meanwhile, I tracked his every move, his calls, his emails, even his calendar invites. That's when I discovered something even more disturbing. Mark wasn't just lying to me, he was lying to his company. There were expense reports for client dinners that never happened, invoices from consultants that didn't exist. I worked in healthcare administration. I knew enough about bookkeeping to recognize creative accounting when I saw it. It hit me. He wasn't just cheating on me emotionally, he was cheating financially. All those business trips, paid with company funds. Part of me wanted to report him right away, but another part wanted to see just how far his lies went, how deep his betrayal truly ran. By the following weekend, I had everything I needed: screenshots, bank records, proof of the affair. But still, I couldn't bring myself to confront him. Not yet. I wanted him to feel what I'd felt. So I made a plan for San Francisco. If he thought he could sneak off for a romantic getaway, I'd be there too, just not as his loving wife. But before that, I needed to find out more about Clara, the woman who had stolen my husband's heart. Using her number from the messages, I did a reverse lookup. Her full name came up. Clara Monroe, 29, event planner. I found her social media easily. Her profile was full of glamorous photos. Rooftop dinners, hotel selfies, flowers she captioned. "He spoils me so much." I recognized one of the bouquets. It was the same arrangement Mark had given me for our anniversary last year. He'd even used the same florist. My hands shook with fury as I scrolled through her photos. One image stopped me cold: Clara standing in front of our lake house. Our private getaway home by the water, the one Mark said he'd been too busy to visit for months. So he'd taken her there too, to my place. That was the moment my grief turned into something else entirely: determination. That evening, I watched him pack a small suitcase, pretending to be casual. He said, "Next Friday, I'll be in San Francisco for 3 days. Company retreat." I smiled sweetly. "Oh, that's great, honey. You deserve a break." He kissed my forehead. "Thanks, you're the best wife." And right there, I almost laughed. Because next Friday, when he thought he'd be waking up next to his mistress in some fancy hotel, he'd be waking up to me. And the truth. End of part 2. As I watched him zip up his suitcase, I whispered to myself, "Enjoy your trip, Mark. It's going to be one you'll never forget." All week, I prepared quietly for what was coming. Mark went about his days completely unaware that I was building the perfect trap for him. He thought he was clever, telling me about team building workshops and networking events. But I knew the truth. He was planning a romantic getaway with his mistress, Clara Monroe, in San Francisco. Every time I looked at him, I felt a storm brewing inside me. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part wanted to cry. But mostly I wanted him to feel what I had felt. The betrayal, the humiliation, the disbelief. So I planned my own kind of revenge. I started by contacting my cousin, Liam, who worked for a private investigation firm. He was the kind of guy who didn't ask too many questions, just got things done. I told him I needed some information gathering done discreetly. Someone cheating on you? He asked bluntly. I hesitated, then nodded. Yes, my husband. Liam sighed. You're not the first. You won't be the last. What do you need? I want photos, proof, and I want to know where they'll be staying. Within 2 days, Liam had everything. Mark had booked a suite at the Grand Crest Hotel, under his company name, of course. Check-in. Friday afternoon. 2 guests. There was even a dinner reservation at a rooftop restaurant called Luna Vista. Candlelight, skyline view, champagne package, the works. That's when I decided I'd be there too. Not as Emily, the wife he lied to, but as someone who would finally end his charade. On Friday morning, I packed a small bag and took the first flight to San Francisco. I didn't tell anyone except Hannah, who insisted on staying on standby in case I needed backup. When I landed, my hands were trembling, not from fear, but from adrenaline. I checked into a hotel just a few blocks away from the Grand Crest. For hours, I just sat there, replaying everything in my mind. Our wedding vows, our anniversaries, the nights we laughed until we cried. How could all of that end with this? By evening, I was ready. I dressed carefully, a black dress, red lipstick, and heels that made me stand tall, even though my heart was breaking inside. When I reached the Grand Crest, I spotted them immediately. Mark, in his favorite navy suit, Clara, in a red dress that looked like she'd chosen it to be remembered. They walked hand in hand through the lobby, laughing. He even carried her bag. It was almost poetic, watching him play the role of perfect gentleman for someone else. I followed them discreetly into the elevator and pressed the floor below theirs. When the doors closed, I heard them giggling, whispering. It made my skin crawl. As soon as they reached their floor, I stepped out and followed the sound of their voices. Room 1008. I memorized the number and went back downstairs. Later that night, I walked into Luna Vista restaurant. My heart was hammering in my chest, but I kept my composure. The hostess smiled politely. Reservation name, ma'am? Carter, I said softly. She glanced down the list. Ah yes, Mr. Mark Carter. Table for 2 on the terrace. Right this way. I smiled faintly. Perfect. I'll be joining shortly. My husband is already seated, correct? Yes, he arrived a few minutes ago with his guest. Guest. That word nearly broke me, but I nodded and stepped back toward the bar. From where I stood, I could see them outside on the terrace. Mark was leaning forward, smiling, holding Clara's hand across the table. Candles flickered between them. He looked happy, too happy. I took out my phone and snapped a few pictures, every smile, every stolen touch. My chest hurt, but I didn't look away. Because that pain? It was fuel for what I was about to do next. I waited until their entrees arrived. Then, I walked calmly toward their table. Mark looked up, mid-laugh. His smile froze instantly. His fork slipped from his hand. Emily? He stammered. Clara turned around, confused. Who's this? I smiled sweetly. Hi, I'm Emily, Mark's wife. The color drained from both their faces. For a moment, the world went completely silent. Even the waiter standing nearby seemed frozen in place. I pulled out my phone and laid it on the table. Recognize these? I said, showing them the photos I'd taken at the hotel, the messages, the dinner reservations, all of it. Clara gasped. You followed us. I laughed bitterly. Followed? No, I just stopped believing the lies. Mark stood up, reaching for my arm. Emily, please, let's not do this here. Oh no, I said sharply, stepping back. We're doing exactly this here. You lied to my face for months. You made me think I was crazy, that I was imagining things. But look at you. The restaurant had gone completely silent. People were watching now, whispers spreading like wildfire. Please, Mark hissed under his breath. You're embarrassing yourself. I tilted my head, smiling coldly. No, Mark. I'm embarrassing you. Clara stood up suddenly. I didn't know he was married, she said, her voice shaking. He told me you were separated. I turned to her. You didn't know? You sure? Because you're standing here wearing his wedding ring chain. She looked down, guilty. I didn't need to say anything else. The truth was already out there, raw and undeniable. Mark tried to reach for me again, but I stepped back. Don't touch. Me. My voice was shaking, but steady enough to make everyone around us freeze. I picked up my phone, my hands trembling. You've been lying to me for months, cheating on me with her, using company money to pay for your little adventures. But don't worry, Mark. I made sure your boss gets all the details on Monday morning. His eyes widened. What? What did you do? I smiled one last time. Just returning the favor. You lied to me, so I returned the truth to everyone else. Then, without another word, I turned and walked away. Outside the restaurant, the cool air hit me like a slap. My legs were shaking, but my heart felt strangely calm. It was over. The secret, the lies, the pretending, it was finally over. I walked back to my hotel, tears blurring my vision. When I got to my room, I collapsed onto the bed and sobbed, deep, uncontrollable sobs that shook my entire body. For 12 years, I'd loved a man who was a stranger. And now, I didn't even know who I was without him. But one thing was certain, Mark's double life had just come crashing down. And I wasn't done with him yet, because I still had one last surprise waiting for him when he got home. End of part 3. When I checked my email that night, I saw a message from Mark's company's HR department. Urgent. Inquiry regarding unauthorized expenses. I smiled through my tears and whispered, "It's only the beginning, Mark." The flight home from San Francisco felt like the longest 3 hours of my life. I stared out the airplane window, my reflection faintly visible in the glass, red eyes, trembling lips, but something fierce burning behind them. I wasn't the same woman who'd left Denver 2 days ago. The woman who boarded that plane had been naive, trusting, desperate for love. The woman flying back. She was done being fooled. She was ready to make him face everything he'd tried to bury. When I landed, I turned my phone off airplane mode, and it exploded with notifications. One from Hannah. "Everyone's talking about what happened at that restaurant. You're a legend." Another from an unknown number, probably one of Mark's coworkers. "He's in deep trouble. HR called a meeting." And then several missed calls from Mark himself. Voicemails too. I didn't listen to them. Not yet. I wanted to hear those excuses face to face. Because when liars get cornered, that's when you finally see who they really are. When I walked into our house, everything looked exactly the same, but it didn't feel the same. The air was heavier. The walls seemed smaller. Even Buddy, our golden retriever, wagged his tail nervously, as if he sensed the storm brewing. I sat on the couch, waiting. It wasn't long before the door burst open. Mark walked in, his hair disheveled, his shirt half-tucked, panic written all over his face. "Emily," he gasped, rushing toward me. "Please, please just listen to me." I looked up calmly. "Oh, I've been listening, Mark. For months. But go ahead. Tell me your version. I could use a good laugh." He froze, realizing I wasn't crying. I wasn't begging. I was calm, dangerously calm. "I made a mistake," he said finally, his voice shaking. "I didn't mean for it to happen. Clara, she meant nothing to me." I let out a bitter laugh. "Nothing? You took her on business trips, bought her gifts with company money, told her you loved her. If that's nothing, I'd hate to see what something looks like." He ran a hand through his hair. "I wasn't thinking straight. Work's been stressful, and you've been so distant." "Stop." I raised my hand. "Don't you dare blame me for your choices." He flinched but kept going. I didn't know how to tell you. I was going to end it." I tilted my head. "Oh, really? Before or after your romantic weekend in San Francisco?" His face went pale. "You were there." I smiled coldly. "Front row seat." He sank into a chair, his face buried in his hands. "God, Emily, I messed up. But you have to believe me, I love you. I always have." I stared at him for a long time. The man in front of me looked familiar, but I didn't recognize him anymore. Every word that came out of his mouth sounded hollow. "Love," I said quietly. "You don't love anyone but yourself." He tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled away. "I've already sent everything to HR," I said flatly. "The receipts, the hotel charges, the fake invoices. They know." He looked up, his eyes wide with horror. What did you do?" "I told the truth," I said. "Something you've clearly forgotten how to do." He stood up abruptly, pacing. "Emily, you don't understand. If they find out I used company funds for personal trips, I could lose my job." Good, I said simply. He turned to me, anger flashing in his eyes. You want to ruin me? I met his gaze, unwavering. No, Mark. You already did that. I'm just finishing the job. He looked like he wanted to scream, but then his face softened. He fell to his knees in front of me. Please, don't do this. I'll make it right. I'll quit my job, cut her off, anything. Just don't leave me. For a second, I almost felt pity. Almost. But then I remembered that perfume on his shirt, the texts calling me a burden, the laughter in that restaurant. I stood up. You already lost me, Mark. You just didn't notice. The next morning, he was gone before I woke up. No note, no call, just silence. Part of me wondered if he was with Clara again. But then I saw the email that confirmed everything. Subject: Employee suspension notice. Dear Mr. Carter, due to recent findings regarding unauthorized expense claims, your employment is hereby suspended pending further investigation. So that was it. His career, gone in a single email. A man who thought he could juggle lies finally dropped them all. I should have felt satisfaction, but instead I felt empty. Because when you love someone for so long, even their downfall hurts to watch. Hannah came over that afternoon, holding a box of wine and tissues. I heard the news, she said, plopping onto my couch. How are you holding up? I shrugged weakly. I don't even know. One minute I'm furious. The next I just feel nothing. She poured us both a drink. That's normal. You've been living in a fantasy for years. It's going to take time to unlearn it. I nodded slowly, taking a sip. The wine burned, but it grounded me. Then she added, by the way, you should know something. Clara quit her job yesterday. Word is, she didn't want to deal with the fallout. I blinked. She worked with him? Hannah nodded grimly. Event consultant for his company. That's how they met. Of course. It all made sense now. The expense reports, the fake meetings. He'd built an entire fake world around their affair. I stared at the ceiling, whispering. He destroyed everything for her. Hannah reached over and took my hand. No, he destroyed everything for himself. Don't give her that power. Later that night, I heard a knock at the door. My stomach twisted. It was him. Mark stood there, drenched in rain, eyes bloodshot, looking broken. Please, he said quietly. I just need to talk. Against my better judgment, I let him in. He looked around the house like it was foreign territory now. I went to Clara's place, he said softly. She's gone. She moved out. I folded my arms. And what exactly do you expect me to do with that information? He took a step closer. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I need you to know I regret it. Every second. I ruined everything. You were the only thing that ever made sense in my life. Tears filled his eyes, but I couldn't tell if they were real or just another performance. He whispered, I love you. For a long moment, I didn't say anything. Then I stepped closer, so close I could see the rain dripping from his eyelashes, and whispered back, then you shouldn't have lied. I opened the door. Goodbye, Mark. He hesitated, like he wanted to say more, but then he walked out into the rain without another word. When the door closed behind him, I finally exhaled. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, divorce papers, rumors, silence, but I knew this. I wasn't the broken woman he thought I'd be. I was free. Or at least, I thought I was. Because 2 days later, I got a message that made my blood run cold. From unknown number. You think it's over, Emily? You have no idea what he's hiding. End of part 4. I stared at the message, heart pounding. Because whoever sent it knew something I didn't, and suddenly, I wasn't sure the worst was really behind me. I froze as I stared at that message glowing on my phone screen. You think it's over, Emily? You have no idea what he's hiding. My pulse quickened. Who could it be? Clara? One of Mark's coworkers? Someone from his company? For a moment, I thought it was just another cruel prank. Someone stirring up drama after everything went public. But then another message came through. Check your husband's private storage locker. Unit 17 at Lock Safe Storage. He's been keeping secrets there for months. I read it twice, my breath catching. Private storage locker? I didn't even know he had one. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to delete the message and move on. But the curiosity, the need to know the full truth, was stronger than fear. Because if the past few weeks had taught me anything, it was that Mark's lies went deeper than I ever imagined. The next morning, I drove to Lock Safe Storage. It was a grim, gray facility on the outskirts of town, the kind of place no one would look twice at. The attendant asked for the unit number, and when I gave it, he frowned. Unit 17? That's Mark Carter's, right? I swallowed. Yes. I'm his wife. He hesitated, then nodded. You'll need a spare key or proof of shared ownership. I reached into my bag and handed him my marriage license and ID. Will this do? He looked at the papers, sighed, and handed me the spare key. Don't stay long, ma'am. That unit's been paid up for the year, but no one's been in for weeks. My heart thudded as I walked down the narrow corridor, the hum of fluorescent lights echoing around me. Unit 17 was near the end, plain, unmarked, like all the others. I slid the key into the lock, took a deep breath, and turned it. The smell of dust and old paper hit me first. Inside were boxes, neatly stacked, labeled with numbers and dates. I knelt and opened one. Inside were documents. Dozens of them. Bank statements, client contracts, envelopes filled with cash. But the names on the documents weren't his. They were aliases: Michael Green, David Lorne, J.T. Meyer. I frowned, flipping through pages. The same handwriting, the same signature. He'd been using fake identities. Then I found a small black notebook labeled private. Do not touch. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were notes, dates, transactions, and women's names. Not just Clara. 4 others. Each name had initials beside it: M, G, DL, JM, matching the fake identities. I covered my mouth in shock. He wasn't just having an affair. He'd been running multiple relationships, each one under a different name. I felt the blood drain from my face. How many lies could one man live? And then I saw something worse, an envelope with my name on it. I tore it open. Inside was a letter written in his unmistakable handwriting. Emily, if you're reading this, then things have gone wrong. I never meant for you to find out about any of it. You have to understand, none of it was real. The other names, the other women, the money, it was all to cover up something much bigger. I did what I had to do to protect us. Please don't go to the police. Mark. I read it again, my hands shaking. Protect us? From what? Suddenly, it hit me. The fake invoices, the clients, the extra cash. He hadn't just been lying about women. He'd been laundering money. I stumbled back, my heart pounding. No wonder HR had launched a full investigation. This wasn't just about cheating. It was criminal. I stuffed the letter into my purse, locked the unit, and drove home in silence. I didn't even notice the rain starting to fall again, the same cold, relentless rain from the night I'd thrown him out. When I got home, I checked my phone. Dozens of missed calls from Mark, and one new voicemail, time-stamped just an hour earlier. His voice was shaky, panicked. Emily, please, don't go to the storage unit. You don't know what's in there. If you've already been, destroy the notebook. Do not call anyone. Just, please trust me this one last time. I'm trying to fix it. You'll be safer if you stay out of it. My stomach dropped. Safer? What did that mean? Before I could think, headlights flashed outside my window. A car pulled up. I froze, heart pounding. Then, knock, knock. When I opened the door, Mark stood there again, soaked from the rain. But this time, there was no begging in his eyes, only fear. You went there, didn't you? He said hoarsely. I swallowed. Yes. I saw everything. He shut his eyes, muttering a curse under his breath. You shouldn't have done that. Why? I demanded. Because I finally know who you really are. A liar. A thief? He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Because now they'll know you know. Who's they? I asked, my voice trembling. He looked at me with something between guilt and terror. The people I was working for. The ones who made me do all that. I thought I could fix it before it reached you. But it's too late. I stepped back. You're telling me you got involved with criminals? He nodded slowly. I didn't have a choice. It started as one fake invoice. Then they threatened to expose me, to ruin us. I was trying to pay them back, but Clara found out, and everything spiraled. I stared at him in disbelief. So, all those women were covers, he said, cutting me off. Distractions. Meetings, transfers, aliases. I had to keep the money moving. I felt sick. You used people. You used me. He reached out, desperate. Emily, please. I was trying to protect you. I slapped his hand away. You don't get to say that. Not after everything you've done. For a long moment, we just stood there, two strangers who once promised forever. Then headlights flashed again. A black SUV slowed outside the house. Mark's eyes widened in panic. They found me, he whispered. Before I could even react, he turned to me, grabbed my shoulders, and said, "Take the notebook. Burn it. Promise me." Mark, what is happening? But he didn't answer. He ran out the back door into the rain, disappearing into the darkness. The SUV stopped, doors opened, and two men stepped out. I quickly shut off the lights and locked the door, heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. Through the window, I saw them scanning the street and then driving off. He was gone. And this time, I knew he wasn't coming back. That night, I sat by the fireplace with the black notebook in my hands. My fingers hovered over the first page, then stopped. I thought about everything, the lies, the betrayal, the heartbreak. I'd loved him. I'd hated him. But most of all, I pitied him. With shaking hands, I threw the notebook into the flames. The pages curled, blackened, and vanished into ash. I whispered, "Goodbye, Mark." Weeks later, the police confirmed what I already suspected. Mark had disappeared. No trace. No body. No closure. They called it a case of suspected fraud and flight. I called it karma. And though the scars he left behind would never